BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello there and welcome to a special edition of the Scottish Football Podcast as we count down the minutes until the return of League football this coming weekend. And in this edition, we're going to preview what we can look forward to in the always entertaining Championship. And as ever, expect the unexpected.
No way, no, is that the big fella? I'm not having that. Substitute goalkeeper unleashes an absolute pile driver.
It drops Rogley on the edge of the box and he scored! It's a screamer from George Oakley! Oh, what a finish that is! Dundee United take the lead. Tony Watt with the touch and finish, magnificent. Stanton and forward, what a finish! What a finish from Lewis Vaughan!
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Right, hello, it's Liam McLeod here with you for this edition of the Scottish Football Podcast. Thanks for listening and thanks for subscribing if you're doing so. I'm joined by Ryan Stevenson, former Hearts and St Johnstone midfielder, who I think also played for 30% of the teams in the Championship, most notably for him, Ayr United, Partick Thistle and Raith Rovers. And I'm joined also by Gordon Waddell, journalist and Falkirk supporter. Gordon, firstly, it's obviously been a very exciting time, finally, for the Falkirk supporters. And the League Cup draw, for which the Bairns managed to win their section to get into, not quite enough for a seed, but it's thrown up a fixture that I'm sure you hold dearly to your heart. Was it 21 years ago now at Brockville, Hearts?
Yes, I was actually working that day. A very beloved day in the history, in the recent history of our club, for sure. I mean, I know it was only I think it was a third round Scottish Cup tie. It was in January. I think it might only have been Craig Gordon's second game in the nets for Hearts as well. But yes, another one of them would be nice. Another one of the 6-0s when Joe Jordan lost his job as a Hearts manager at Brockville would have been nice as well. But yeah, we've had our ups and downs with them, but yeah, listen, it's a cracking draw. I'm pretty sure that the board and the manager would rather have avoided somebody quite as high up there as the Jambos. But yeah, I think we'll take it and look forward to it.
Yeah, the only disappointing thing for you is that you don't have Brockville anymore, but at least it's at home.
Well, sadly not. That was one of the great levellers.
Yes, yeah. Indeed it was. One of the traditional great levellers in Scottish football. But Gordon, seriously though, I mean, 5-year absence from the second tier. You went from kind of regularly fighting under Peter Houston for promotion to the top flight, where the Falkirk supporters want to be, of course, to this kind of barren period, half a decade in the third tier. It just wasn't good enough. But John McGlynn's brought the good times back and Championship football to look forward to.
He has. Listen, I mean, it's not just been that 5 years. It's been a kind of terminal decline over, a period of probably about 2 decades. Because you throw in that kind of spell that we had under John Hughes, where we were a kind of permanent fixture in the top flight for 6 years, and it felt like you were starting to belong there. And then since we went down and after the kind of Scottish Cup final of 2009, there's just been this inexorable slide. So there's a generation of Falkirk fans have grown up, not only not knowing success, but basically, knowing kind of failure. And yeah, we had a couple of playoff runs, as you rightly say, under Houston, which were terrific, in a period where the Championship was brutal, when you had Hearts and Hibs and Rangers, and Dundee United have been in there as well. It's been a hard division for a long time. And then 5 years in the third tier has just been wholly unacceptable. But yep, credit to them, they eventually kind of landed on a manager who was the right guy, who had been course and distance before in that league, to get them out of it over a couple of years and build a team not only that got them out of it, but that will hopefully compete up a level this year as well.
And Ryan, I was on the radio programme on Saturday looking ahead to the start of the Championship season, and I was kind of suggesting that, this is the first time in maybe a little while, even though there's big clubs in there, and Falkirk very much one of them, Dunfermline, Partick Thistle, others as well on top of that. There's no big fish, if you like, this time. Dundee United the latest to exit the second tier and get back to the top flight. But this is going to be a pretty level playing field for the first time in a long time, I would have thought.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think when I got the email on Friday, I think it was about coming on the show, I thought I'm going to go and do a wee bit of homework this afternoon just before we come on, and I looked at the teams in the league, and I just thought, usually you've got one or two that maybe jump out at you straight away, and you'd obviously look at Livingston coming down, but I don't think Livingston will go straight back up. I just think it's been too much of a bit of turmoil in at Livingston coming down. I think it's going to be very difficult for them to go straight back up. But then you look at the other teams and you just think, you've got Partick there, who have missed out the last 2 years, Just, Ayr, who are spending big money, and the chairman of Ayer's backed Scott and Stephen, and I think they'll be looking to try and get up. Gordon will be happy. I think Falkirk could be the dark horses that could sneak in. You've also got Raith Rovers, who again have just only missed out. There's a cluster of teams there, and I think it will just be whoever can be consistent throughout the course of the season, obviously, that can go on and try and get up into the Premier League.
It's going to be so exciting. I can't wait for it to start. And it starts on Friday, live on the BBC Scotland channel, with Falkirk unveiling the flag, or unfurling the flag, perhaps more appropriately, before they take on Queen's Park. It's, as I say, live on the telly, and there'll be plenty live Championship action with us on a Friday evening. Gordon, for those who are perhaps, and there can't be that many of them now, surely, but for those who are uninitiated when it comes to the Championship, how would you describe its appeal, in particular those Friday nights under the lights on the telly?
I mean, it has been the most competitive league in Scottish football for, arguably the last kind of 2 decades. And as Ryan rightly points out, there's no out-and-out favourite this year. You look at, and also, it's funny, I mean, I was doing the same. I was having a look through some of the recruitment over the summer, and a lot of the teams have gone through some big upheaval. I mean, there's, the teams who have look at Airdrie, for example. Airdrie were put in a terrific shift last year and got themselves into the playoffs, and Rhys McCabe's built a really attractive team to watch. You see it in the League Cup. They've done well this year already. They look the part. They've brought in what appears to be a great signing in Ben Wilson, who seems to have, who's scored 6 in the group sections, as well as others. But they've also lost a goalie in Josh Ray. They've lost guys like Charlie Telfer. Callum Fordyce is away. So I mean, but every team has gone through upheaval. So everybody's looking at this league saying, well, who's going to hit the ground running? Who's going to be the team? Falkirk haven't done much. I mean, it's quite funny. John McLeod came away with a great quote last week, and because people were talking about, I mean, Falkirk are probably, arguably with the bookies, about 4th or 5th favourites, and so they're although they've got stability, they've not really recruited, and they're a bit of an unknown quantity up a division just to see. I mean, like last year, Airdrie came up and finished 4th, and Fairland came up and finished 6th. It's not easy to come up and immediately make an impact against teams like Raith Rovers, as Ryan says, who have been up there, against Partick Thistle, who have been up there. But John McLeod was trying to manage expectations and basically saying, we haven't got a budget that's anywhere near getting out of this league, and he was talking about what he wanted, and he said, yeah, I want a yacht and a Bentley, but you don't always get what you want,
That's good manager talk, though, Gordon.
Exactly, yeah. He's really tempered the expectation amongst the Falkirk support about what to expect this season. But every team in the league is probably deep down, and Ryan, you've been in enough dressing rooms in this division that you will know that each manager in this league will be telling their players that they can beat whoever is in front of them in this division. There's not a team that any of the teams, like whether it's Morton or Queen's Park or Hamilton, where John Rankin or Cal Davison or whatever won't be sitting in a dressing room giving it, you can beat this team. They're not that good. It's an attritional division. It really is. You will win this division by probably winning 22 of your 36 games.
Yeah, so it kicks off Falkirk Queen's Park on Friday. Then on Saturday, it's Airdrieonians Raith Rovers. What a game that'll be. Accies Ayr United, Livingston Dunfermline, and Partick Thistle host Morton. Just touched on Raith Rovers there. Ryan, is there a bit of pressure and expectation on them now, given their exploits last season and coming so close, coming all the way through to the playoff final, ultimately undone by Ross County in that second leg? Pretty comfortable win, actually, for County in the end. I just wonder if there's a bit of pressure on Ian Murray from their own supporters even going into this season.
Yeah, so I think there will be. I think there'll be pressure on Raith Rovers and Ian Murray. I think there'll be pressure on Chris at Partick Thistle because they've got there the last 2 seasons. But I don't know. Listen, I think both teams will do really, really well, and I think they have recruited well. I think they've got a good nucleus there, but it's just that third season going again when you've been so near. I think for Wraith Rovers, I think they were comfortably beaten by Ross County in the end, and I think they kind of ran out of steam. And the same for Partick Thistle. I think when that chance fell to Brian Graham, I think in the last minute, it was extra time, and he blazed it over the bar, and you just kind of felt
Stark's part, yeah.
You just thought, wow. And automatically as a player, the first thing I thought about was, I know what we're going through his head, thinking here's another season in the Championship when you're so close to getting into that playoff final. All I can say is I think there will be massive pressure on Wraith. I think there will be massive pressure on Partick Thistle. But what a division. I think it's the best division we've got. I think the fact that everybody can beat everybody, I think at times when you watch the football, I think the standard of football is really good at times as well. So yeah, I'm just excited to see it all kick off and get back to league business.
There was Livingston, Gordon. Looked as though they were bouncing back from their relegation last season with a seamless march to the last 16 of the League Cup, and then up pops Cammy Russell for Spartans with 5 of the 90 to play at Amon Vale in their final group match. It puts Spartans through as group winners and knocks Livingston out. So yet more turmoil for Davy Martindale to deal with. He cut a pretty forlorn figure at times last season, stressed at times as well. How do you think they're going to get on after that relegation?
There's a bit of me slightly surprised that he's got the energy to go again, if you know what I mean, but they've got a completely clean slate. It's going to be fascinating to watch how they react, because I mean, obviously there is some turmoil off the field there as well, you know, but they've done a between the recruitment, they've lost a team and signed a team just about, you know, and there's some really interesting guys in there. I mean, they're going to be such an unknown quantity in terms of trying to start from scratch. The one thing I will say is that he did most of his recruitment in June, you know, i.e., you know, we seem to have a lot of guys just ready to go. A lot of their, you know, I mean, they signed about 8 or 9 players long before pre-season had started. So I think there's probably been a realism towards the tail end of last season saying, we're going down here, we're going to prepare early for what lies ahead. So, you know, maybe he's had a bit of a head start. He's not scrambling about to get guys in now. You know, he's probably been, you know, he's been building in his head a team that can supposedly hit the ground running. But you know, as you say, then you get suddenly derailed by a game like that on Saturday, and you think, right, they've still got a lot of togetherness to find. Maybe, you know, I mean, I'm looking down the list of the players. I'm saying, you're thinking, well, you know, getting somebody like Ryan McGowan's great. Robbie Muirhead's been over the course in this division before. Lewis Smith's been over the course. But you've got a ton of guys in there that you're thinking, right, don't know a lot about these guys, but they've lost so many players. They've lost Penrice, they've lost Shinnie, Holt, Bruce Anderson, Noodley, Obilai. You know, I mean, all these guys have gone. It's like for a team who has been so stable in the top flight and so stable in terms of having a core of players who have kind of seen them through that and who play a certain way, and you knew what you were going to get. You've got no idea what you're going to get from Livingston this season, and that even in itself is interesting. And that's notwithstanding what's going on in the background with the club,
and a shift in mentality as well, Gordon.
Aye,
because every year it's been, they know the remit. It's just, we need to stay up. We need to stay up. Where now it's, we need to win this. So it's a total shift in mentality as well for the full club. That would be people behind the scenes, the manager, new players coming in.
That's a really good point. They've had a dogged mentality for so long. You know, and it's what made them so difficult to play against. But they need to be better than that now. They need to be the team that actually goes out and says, right, well, as you say, we need to dominate some of these games now, and if we're going to go up, then we need to win 20 games, not just not lose them.
You know, Livingston as a football club have been in much darker holes than the one they find themselves in this season. You know, when you look back at their relatively short history, and they of course have enjoyed in the past successive promotions. I just wonder, we touched on Falkirk there, obviously Hamilton Accies coming up as well through the playoffs at the expense of Cali Thistle. I just wonder how much they'll fancy their chances of making an impact on the top 4 in the division at the very least, because both have been playing top flight football in the last couple of decades, Hamilton more recently than Falkirk, but we're talking about 2 clubs with top level experience in recent times, and we've seen clubs bounce through the divisions, you know, in successive seasons in recent times.
Listen, I think John's done a great job there. I think when he first went in, he was under a bit of pressure. He came through that as a young manager. He's done well to get them into the chat. I think for Hamilton, they really need to just stay in the division. For me, I think when you look at Falkirk, I think just the history of Falkirk, I'm not being disrespectful, and I don't mean to be disrespectful to Hamilton, but I just think Falkirk have that fan base there. They've got, the history of Brockville and then, moving to the new stadium. And I just think they've got a bit more about them as a club to try and go and maybe push into that top four. I think for John and for Hamilton, I think it would be, again, just getting in the division, keeping Hamilton in the championship, steadying the ship and then trying to make progress from there. That's why I genuinely see Falkirk. And I know John, obviously I worked with John at Hearts, and I know what John's like coming out, and the budget will be probably one of the lower end budgets, but make no mistakes about it, he'll know that his players can go there and make a fight of it and do reasonably well in that championship, if not really well. And he'll play it down. You see his interviews sometimes. Sometimes when you watch his interviews and you know what he's doing, but he'll have the boys ready and raring to go.
I think his post Challenge Cup final interview from a couple of seasons ago was pretty memorable. From he's some boy. Gordy. Sorry, I mean, given Falkirk's exploits last season, Hamilton kind of went under the radar a little bit.
They did, and they lost. They lost so much ground over the winter, but you've got to remember, when they came back, they only lost one game in the last 15 as they kind of came through, and they came through the playoffs strongly. So again, they're nobody's mugs, and as Steve O'Reilly points out, I think they did well standing by John Rankin after they went down, and to be fair, he's rewarded them by getting them back up. They've done some interesting recruitment. Again, I think he's probably working with one hand tied behind his back in a budgetary sense, apart from, as Brian rightly points out, Falkirk have got, albeit we are a fairly newly formed kind of fan-owned organisation now, so therefore budgets, we don't have anybody bankrolling us, but the fans bankroll us. Our crowds, and we were averaging, just under 5,000 in League One last year, and that's not just because we were winning. That figure hasn't dropped in 5 years. Really, it's been, we've had really good crowds. We will have 5,000 and 6,000 at every game this year. Accies, even when they were doing well last year, we're probably still having they've still got 1,000 people coming through the door if they're lucky.
That's the difference, Gordon. That's what I think the difference is.
A massive difference for them. So I think the expectations on them probably shouldn't be as high as they are, but they did well. They bounced back after a pretty horrible season the season before, and I think even they said that they should have been favourites last year to win that League One division. And once Falkirk started running away with it, they did well to kind of stabilise themselves and finish strong and get themselves through the playoffs and get back up without any further setbacks. So consolidation's right for them. I think, you look at their squad and their backdrop, and of all the teams, you're looking at that will be trying to temper expectations, probably they'll be the ones, maybe them and Morton will be the ones who'll be saying, let's just, settle ourselves. It doesn't mean to say that they'll not be looking at, because this is a great thing about this division as well, is at 4th place. I think was it last year up until maybe about a couple of weeks, beforehand, you had teams, there were teams in 7th place and 8th place who were still thinking, we could get into 4th year, we could still get a playoff. And then Airdrie went on that little run, and a couple of teams kind of fell apart a wee bit. Ayr probably being one of them. Ayr went through that really weird phase where they went win, lose, and their playoff hopes kind of crashed in the last kind of 6 weeks probably. They only won one of their last 6, I think, last year. Or else they might have been in the playoffs. But everybody if they're hanging in there in 7th place or 8th place, they can still look at 4th as a legit way to get into these playoffs. So again, part of the beauty of the division that you don't necessarily have in the top flight is the fact that you've got that kind of depth that goes 36 games with some jeopardy in it.
Ayr United is a club that you, obviously, Ryan, are very close to. It just feels at Ayr United, in the town, at the club, then you stand there, and obviously they've got a kind of celebrity management team, if you like.
Don't you jinx it, Liam.
Looking to happen. Well, it's not about jinxing it, but what I would say is that they seem to be in a good place right now. I know Gordon's talking about the inconsistencies of last season. If they can iron that out, they could easily find themselves in the playoffs, or maybe even, would they be targeting winning the title? Will that be the big ambition? Scott Brown and Stephen Whittaker are winners, aren't they?
Yeah, Scott Brown will. They would have had a meeting during pre-season, and they would have sat in-house and said, what can we do here? And I can guarantee you, every single player and every bit of management staff would have said, we can win the league. And again, it just comes down to the consistency. As Gordon said, if they were a bit more consistent last year, they would have been in the playoffs, 100%. And I think our championship sort of echoes the English championship in a way, where it's teams sort of there'll be a team that comes from nothing this year that you probably don't really expect that will maybe get into the playoffs, and it's just that consistency, being able to go that 8-10 games on a good run that can just get the right time, a wee bit of luck that can just get you in there. But for Ayr, I think for the money they've spent, I think with the new stand, I think the way that the chairman's pushing the club, bringing Scott and Stephen in.
Graham Mathie as well, as his influence underestimated, was, as a very smart,
Graham as well, done a great job
at the club.
Yeah, very, very shrewd, mate, but very, very honest, very, very good, which in football can be very hard to come across as people who can be super honest with you. And to be fair to Graham, he really, really is. And I think the chairman is as well. The chairman, I've known the chairman a good while as well, and everything that he said he was going to do, he's followed through with. He's put his own money where his mouth is. And to be fair to Scott and Stephen, they've came in and they've embraced the club. They've embraced the fans. The fans, and that is the biggest thing. See if they can get the fans and the team pushing all in the one direction, but the people behind the scenes as well. It can really only lead to success. So I hope for Scott and Stephen it really does. And to be fair, the way they've played so far since they came in and pre-season, it looks healthy. But at the same time, I've been there where you've had a really good pre-season and you get into the first game of the season and you get beat.
It's funny though. I mean, you were talking earlier on about the Brockville effect for Falkirk back in the day, and then obviously that's 20 years past. But you look at, Somerset Park is just a brilliant ground to go watch football and to play football. And now that it's kind of more closed in on the other side as well, I think that's a cracking advantage for Ayr United in that division as well. And as much as I think that teams genuinely go down there, and if the fans are in and the fans are behind the team, it's a hard place to go and win a game. Over the years, I've been down there so many times as a Falkirk fan, and you're sitting in, or you're standing in that shed at the far end, and the wind's driving and the rain's driving, or if it's a nighttime game or whatever, and it's
just a beautiful sight, Gordon.
It's exactly. It is. It's great. It's good old school football, and I think that they've done really well by the club. I know that Bill Barr all these years ago wanted to move away from Somerset and build one of his kind of Airfix, stadiums and out past the race course, and that never kind of came to fruition. But it's one of the best things that's happened to them is the fact that they've managed to stay and redevelop a proper ground out of Somerset Park.
Ayr are on the brink. See fan-wise, Ayr are on the brink where they'll maybe get 2,000, 1,500, 2,000 to then go and build a new stadium at 6,000, 7,000. It would go the opposite way because the stadium would sit empty half the time unless we get a really good draw and a cup or something. I'm hoping this year that if Ayr go and do well, more people go, we can get the crowds up to the likes of Falkirk, maybe not to that extent, but even getting up to 2,500, 3,000, get the buzz round about the town, and hopefully Scott and Stephen can go on and do that, and the players can go on and do that.
Airdrie, I saw a lot of them last season. Rhys McCabe's got them playing some great football. I watched them at Pittodrie in the League Cup, and they were knocking it about, no problem. It was brilliant to see, actually, the way they were playing, and Rhys McCabe was in the team. He loves to dictate it from centre half these days. How do you think they're going to get on this season? Are they credible title challengers? Surely they are. If you look at the way they've been playing, it's just perhaps all the changes in the size of the squad. Would that work against them?
It's hard to tell. You're looking down their recruitment list, and they've got I'm counting on to. There's like 10 or 11 players have come in, and they've obviously lost quite a few as well. But I guess a bit of a changing of the guard, because obviously guys like Callum Gallagher has been a constant for them for 5 years. He's away. Fordyce has been the same. Losing Josh Ray at St Johnstone, they've got 2 lone goalkeepers in. They've played 2 games each in the League Cup. I don't know if there's any kind of certainty over who's going to be the definitive number 1 for them or not. But Rhys McCabe seems to know what he's doing. He's instigated a style that he wants there, and he will have recruited towards that style. And again, I mentioned the boy Ben Wilson earlier on, who seems to have impressed, and who everybody says if you're looking for a top goal scorer to bet on in the division, then the chances are is going to be him. So he's replaced Callum Gallagher, who did struggle up a division last year. He only scored 8-9 goals last year. He wasn't the threat that he had been in League One when they were there for a couple of years. So he's probably upgraded, and with a younger model up front as well. So they'll be there or thereabouts with the way they play. They'll definitely be. I'd be stunned if they weren't a playoff team at the very least.
Ryan, as far as Queen's Park, Morton and Dunfermline are concerned, are they the ones that you would think will be battling at the other end of the table?
I think Morton will, yeah. I think obviously I just see they signed J. Emmanuel Thomas there, so we're hoping that he can come in and get some goals for them. But I played with Jay at Ipswich, and there's no doubt he's got talent there, and he can do well in the Championship. But it's getting Jay to play well. You've seen it at times at Livingston and at Aberdeen. He could be absolutely amazing one week and then be like my gran the next week. And he was the same at Ipswich. I just find it hard that we're actually talking about Dunfermline, the size of that club, and that's where they are.
Do you know what? The reason I've kind of bunched them in with those three is they've struggled in the League Cup. They struggled at times last season, even though they managed to finish 6th. There just seems to be something's not right there just now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think they'll struggle at the full lot of that division. I think they could be the ones that really, really struggle. And I just find it crazy because of the size of the club, and it shouldn't be where it is. But again, as Ayr's going that way, you can see with Dunfermline when there's mumblings behind the scenes and fans not happy, it very quickly goes the other way.
And that's the thing, they've lost players as well. Guys like Josh Edwards started all 36 games from last year. He's away to Charlton, so I mean, it's just, I think financially it's difficult for them, and it's difficult for a manager to overcome that. Yeah,
I'm sure the Falkirk fans won't be losing too much sleep over what happens at Dunfermline if they're struggling. Anyway, just before we go, and I did this in the Premiership preview podcast as well, we're going to do get a few quick-fire predictions from the two of you, if you don't mind. So I'll start with you, Gordon. Who's going to win the title?
Wraith Rovers.
Ryan?
Partick Thistle.
Who's going to be the surprise package? Gordon?
Are we allowed to say the Falkirk finishing second's a surprise? In which case,
well, yeah.
Falkirk are going to be the surprise package and be in the playoffs and hopefully go up via them.
Yeah, I'm going to say Falkirk as well. I agree.
Player of the season, Gordy?
If I picked Wraith Rovers to win, then I'm going to pick a Wraith Rovers player. I'm going to say Dylan Easton.
He's basically just done that off the cuff, hasn't he? So my thinking is Partick Thistle to win the league, and like a fine wine, Brian Graham to be outstanding this year. I've just got a feeling that he will be outstanding. And that
miss in a mission because I was just going to say,
there you go.
He scored in the first 3 games, hasn't he, in the League Cup?
I just think that miss he had at Wraith Rovers this year, he'll come back and it'll drive him on. Yeah,
right. So he'll presumably be who you would imagine will be top scorer in the championship. Yes. Ryan, Gordon, what do you think?
I can't disagree with that. 20 last year and 3 already in the League Cup this year. He's a handful. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that.
Okay, manager of the season.
I'm going to go for again. I'm going Thistle right on the line. I'm going to go for my wee mate Chris Doolan.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope Scott Brown.
Yes, of course you do.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I'm going to say if he takes that Wraith Rovers team up in the way that they've gone about it, then Ian Murray will end up. There's no point in saying they're going to win the league and then not choosing their manager as manager of the year. So
that's a fair comment. And just finally, the worst question of all of them. Who's going to get relegated? Ryan?
Dunfermline.
Don't say Dunfermline. I was going to say Dunfermline and enjoy it.
Yeah, I just wow. Genuinely just feel that will be... I think all the other teams have got enough about them to actually see themselves away from it. I think it'll be between... and I like Callum as well, but I think Queen's Park will struggle as well.
I think Morton will be down there as well this year, and I don't like saying that, because all the guys who are grafting away in that division are trying to make their way and doing well. It sounds terrible, but yeah, I think Dunfermline are going to have a struggle this year.
I kind of suspected you'd say them. I'm sure James McPake will be playing this clip over and over again in the changing room before every match this season. Guys, listen, thank you very much, Ryan and Gordon, for joining us on the Scottish Football Podcast. We can't wait. It's all starting on Friday night. It's Falkirk against Queen's Park. Live on the BBC Scotland TV channel. You get news of the 4 championship matches that will be kicking off on Saturday on Sportsound as well on BBC Radio Scotland. And we've got new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast every weekday morning, bright and early. So to keep up to speed, download it, subscribe to it. You'll get it at bbc.co.uk/sportscotland and at BBC Sounds. But from me, Liam McLeod, bye for now.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.